Let's just be honest for a second. How many of us are really getting the sleep we need? I know, right? It feels like a universal struggle. But what if you could actually master your sleep using science? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dive into. Today, we're breaking down an absolute masterclass on the science of sleep from one of the world's leading neuroscientists, Dr. Matt Walker.
And listen, that is not an exaggeration. As Dr. Walker puts it, sleep is our biological life support system. So, in this explainer, we're going to distill his most powerful, science-backed insights from his chat with Dr. Andrew Huberman to give you the tools you need to perfect your own sleep.
So, here's the game plan. First, we're going to pull back the curtain on what's actually happening when you close your eyes. Then, we'll expose the two biggest enemies of your rest. After that, we'll dig into the science of sleeping better, tackle the great napping debate, and then wrap it all up with a simple toolkit you can start using tonight.
So, what even is sleep? You know, it's easy to think of it as just shutting down for the night. But that's not it at all. As Dr. Walker describes it, sleep is an incredibly complex physiological ballet. Your brain is surprisingly active, sometimes even more active than when you're awake. Let's take a look at how this whole dance plays out. Okay, so how does this ballet actually work? Well, it all comes down to something called sleep architecture. Every single night, your brain cycles through two main types of sleep. You've probably heard of them, NREM and REM. And it does this in these repeating 90-minute loops. But here's the really fascinating part. The balance between these two types of sleep changes dramatically as the night goes on.
And this right here shows you exactly what I'm talking about. In the first half of the night, your sleep is all about that deep, physically restorative NREM sleep. But in the second half of the night, the balance completely shifts toward lighter NREM and REM sleep, which is absolutely critical for your mind. So think about this. If you cut your sleep short, you're not just getting less sleep, you are selectively starving your brain of vital REM sleep. So the big takeaway here is that both of these stages are totally non-negotiable. Deep NREM sleep. Think of it like physical therapy for your body. It's supporting your immune system, it's even acting like a natural blood pressure medication. REM sleep, on the other hand, is like emotional first aid for your mind. It's processing emotions, locking in memories, and replenishing key hormones. You absolutely need both to be at your best. All right, now that we know what good sleep is supposed to look like, let's talk about what's destroying it. Dr. Walker points to two main culprits that, let's be real, millions of us consume every single day, often with no idea of the full extent of the damage. I'm talking about caffeine and alcohol. So to really get what caffeine does, you first have to understand this chemical called adenosine. The easiest way to think about it is like a sleepiness tracker. From the very moment you wake up, adenosine starts building up in your brain. And the more of it that accumulates, the more sleep pressure you feel, which is just a fancy way of saying the sleepier you get. So how does caffeine hijack this system? It's actually a pretty clever trick. Caffeine doesn't get rid of the adenosine. Nope. It just rushes in and plugs up the receptors in your brain. It's kind of like putting on earmuffs so your brain can't hear the adenosine screaming, "Hey, I'm tired." But that adenosine is still there, building and building. And when the caffeine finally wears off, you get hit with all of that sleepiness at once. That's the tsunami wave. That's the caffeine crash. And here is the absolute kicker. Caffeine sticks around for a really, really long time. A half-life of 5 to 6 hours. What does that mean? It means if you have a coffee at 2 in the afternoon, half of that caffeine is still swirling around in your system at 7 or 8 p.m., and a quarter of it is still there at 2 a.m. That's why Dr. Walker's advice is to cut off all caffeine 8 to 10 hours before you plan to go to bed. Okay, let's move on to our second saboteur, alcohol. A lot of people think a nightcap helps them unwind and fall asleep, but Dr. Walker is crystal clear on this. Alcohol isn't a sleep aid, it's a sedative. All it does is knock out your brain's cortex, basically making you lose consciousness. But let's be very clear, sedation is not sleep. In fact, it does the opposite. It actively destroys your sleep quality in 3 key ways. First, it fragments your sleep, just peppering the night with these tiny little awakenings you might not even remember. Second, and this is a big one, it is one of the most powerful suppressors of REM sleep we know of. That's that critical stage for mental and emotional health. And yeah, even a single drink can disrupt this whole process.
Okay, enough doom and gloom about what not to do. Let's switch gears and focus on the solutions. Dr. Walker highlights 2 of the most powerful levers you can pull in your environment to dramatically improve your sleep: light and temperature.
Light is the #1 signal that sets your body's master 24-hour clock. So if you can get 30 to 40 minutes of natural daylight early in the morning, you're anchoring your internal rhythm and screaming at your body, "Hey, it's time to be awake." And then in the evening, you want to do the exact opposite. You dim the lights, you get off the screens, and you send the signal, all right, it's time to wind down. Now this next point is so fascinating, and it's something most of us never think about. To fall asleep and stay asleep, your brain and body need to drop their core temperature by about 1 degree Celsius. This isn't just a helpful tip, it's a non-negotiable biological trigger for sleep. It's the reason you always find it easier to fall asleep in a room that's a little too cold versus one that's way too hot.
So, how can we use this to our advantage? Well, Dr. Walker offers this amazing, kind of counterintuitive tip. Take a hot bath or shower about 90 minutes before you go to bed. I know what you're thinking. Wait, a hot bath to cool down? But here's how it works. The hot water brings all the blood to the surface of your skin, and when you get out, that heat radiates away from you, causing a rapid drop in your core body temperature. It's a perfect signal to your brain that it's time for bed. All right, let's wade into a bit of a controversial topic: napping. I mean, for some people, it's an absolute game changer. For others, it's a guaranteed way to ruin a good night's sleep. So what does the science actually have to say about it?
So what's the verdict? Are naps good or are they bad? Well, like so many things in biology, the answer is it's a little complicated. Let's break down the pros and the cons.
The evidence for the benefits of napping is actually really strong. There was this classic NASA study that found a short, 26-minute nap boosted a pilot's performance by over 30%. Pretty amazing. But the dark side of napping, well, it brings us back to our old friend adenosine. Remember that sleep pressure? A nap basically opens the release valve on that pressure, which can make it a lot harder to build up enough sleepiness to fall asleep easily at night.
Okay, so here are Dr. Walker's simple rules for napping smart. Rule number 1. If you struggle with insomnia or just falling asleep at night, you probably want to avoid napping altogether. Rule 2. If you do nap, keep it short. We're talking 20 to 25 minutes. That helps you avoid waking up from deep sleep, which is what causes that groggy feeling. And finally, timing is everything. Keep your naps in the early afternoon so you don't sabotage your nighttime rest.
Wow, we've covered a ton of science here, so let's bring it all together. We're going to distill everything we've just learned into a simple 5-point toolkit. These are foundational habits you can use to start mastering your sleep, like tonight.
First up, be consistent. Try to stick to the same bedtime and wake-up time, even on the weekends. Second, seek the light. Get that bright sun in the morning and keep your evenings dim. Third, stay cool. A cool bedroom is absolutely essential for helping your body drop its core temperature. Fourth, mind your intake. We know this one now. Cut off that caffeine and alcohol well before bed. And finally, number 5, wind down. Create a relaxing, screen-free routine that signals to your body and your brain that it's time to sleep.
You know, when you really get to science, you start to realize sleep isn't some optional luxury or, a sign of weakness. It is, as Dr. Walker says, your non-negotiable life support system. It's the single most powerful thing we have to reset our brain and our body every single day.
So, I guess my question for you is this. After hearing all this, what is the one small, actionable change you're going to make tonight? Are you going to skip that afternoon coffee, maybe take a hot bath, or just put your phone away an hour earlier? The power to transform your health, starting tonight, it's right there in your hands.